Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is flirt. Let's take a moment to look at some of the definitions or the ways that we use this verb. The verb flirt is frequently used to describe when someone behaves in a way that shows they are attracted to or they are trying to attract the attention of someone else. So it can be a wide variety of actions and even sometimes words. The way people smile, they'll say the way people touch their hair, things like that. Again, you're really trying to signal that you are interested in someone else. A second way you'll hear the verb flirt used is to mean to experiment with or show a very basic interest in some idea, an activity, or something of that nature, but generally you're not committing yourself to it. So here we're really talking about kind of a surface level interest, not a deep interest. You're not developing a new hobby, just kind of maybe experimenting with a particular idea. A third way the verb flirt gets used is to mean to intentionally put oneself into a dangerous or a difficult situation. It's pretty common with this definition to hear the phrase flirt with danger. So, again, it notes someone isn't doing this accidentally or the danger is not being caused by someone else. They, on purpose, have pursued that dangerous or difficult situation. A fourth and less common way that you'll hear flirt used can mean to move abruptly. You might see this usage in literature. Sometimes it's used to describe very abrupt movements from animals. You should know that flirt is a regular verb. To make the progressive form of this verb, all I need to do is add ing to form flirting. The past tense and participle forms of this verb can be made by adding ed. Our base verb flirt ends with an unvoiced T sound. So when I add that ed ending, I'm going to need to add an extra syllable as I say the past tense or participle form. So I'm going to add an id sound to the end of this verb. It should sound like this: flirted, flirted. Okay? Now, flirt is very commonly used as a phrasal verb. And the preposition you're going to hear used most commonly is to flirt with. So some of the earlier definitions we looked at, you're going to notice very similar ones here. So one way we can use flirt with is referencing someone's behavior. They're acting in a way that indicates they are attracted to someone. An example of this might be, she's been flirting with him all through class. So here we're describing someone behaving, so one's actions, possibly even their words, kind of indicating they're interested in this other person. A second way you hear flirt with used is to mean to consider doing something for a very short time. But generally, we don't consider this to be a really serious interest. So, kind of an idea we have, and then many times we dismiss it pretty quickly. An example of this: we flirted with the idea of moving abroad. So, if you heard someone say a sentence like this, they have not made the decision to do it. It's just kind of like, we thought about it for a little bit and for whatever reason decided not to pursue it. The third way you hear flirt with used is again to mean to intentionally take risk. Put yourself in that dangerous or difficult situation. An example of that: teen boys often flirt with danger. So they do things that put them in risky situations. Now, let's continue using our verb of the day, flirt, in a couple different verb tenses. Today, we're going to practice the imperative and the present perfect progressive. Let's start with the imperative. We use this form of our verbs to give commands. So we're telling someone to do something. This is a little stronger than advice, right? With advice, we're making a suggestion, it's kind of implying I think it's a good idea to. This is going to be a little stronger. We're telling someone to do an action. The imperative might also be known by some people as a command. Okay, same idea here. It's unique in English because we do not have a stated subject. If you've watched these videos, you know many times I begin with subject and perhaps a modal or helping verb of some kind, then another form of a verb, right? We're not going to have a stated subject in the imperative. It's always implied. It's either you singular or you plural, depending on how many people we are speaking to or writing to. So, to make an affirmative imperative sentence, we can just start the sentence with the base verb, so no special endings. An example of how maybe you've heard somebody say this, I want you to kind of imagine friends are out and a friend is encouraging another to maybe pursue someone else. So you might hear them say, "You're single now. Flirt with anyone you want." Right? So they're kind of encouraging, meet some other people. Okay. Now, if you want to make a negative imperative sentence, what we're going to do is start our sentences with do not and then the base verb. You might also hear the imperative here, don't, and then the base verb. My example sentence here, don't flirt with your coworkers. Right? Generally, not a good idea to engage in this verb in the workplace. So my last note on the imperative is that we don't have questions in the imperative. So we're just telling people to do a particular action or not do a particular action. Sometimes that can feel very forward, so we can always soften things or make it a little more polite by adding the word please. We can add please to the beginning of a sentence or the end, but we don't need it in both places. Now let's talk about the present perfect progressive. Some teachers and some textbooks will call this the present perfect continuous. That's fine. They mean the exact same thing. With this particular verb tense, we're using it to describe an action that started in the past and is continuing into the present. Many times we want to use this verb tense to kind of stress how long something has been continuing or how long something has been progressing. The reason I like to call this the present perfect progressive is I point out to my students that this name of the verb tense begins with 3 P's, and this is meant to be a helpful reminder that we're going to need 3 parts to make our verb in the affirmative. So my sentences in the affirmative present progressive will begin with a subject. Then I'm going to use have or has. That's the present piece of it. Then I use the participle been, B-E-E-N. And then that's the perfect form. And then the progressive, that's the ing form of the verb. You can see this in my example sentence. This team has been flirting with relegation for most of the season. I saw a sentence very similar to this as I was reading an article about a particular soccer team in Europe. We know they have these different levels or divisions, and one team is kind of in this dangerous position of performing so poorly that they might be moved down a particular level. Now let's talk about a negative present perfect progressive sentence. To do this, again, I start with my subject, and then I'm going to use have or has, then not, then been, then the ing form of the verb. Here's another example. They haven't been flirting with each other. Okay. Finally, if I want to make a yes or no question in the present perfect progressive, I'm going to start with have or has, whichever form matches my subject, and the subject comes next. Then I use the participle been, and then the ing form of the verb. Here's another example. Has she been flirting with the idea of an early retirement? Okay, so that's the considering a topic, considering a choice here, maybe of retiring early. Now, let's spend a few moments looking at words that are related to our verb flirt. And the first word we're going to look at is just the noun form of this word. So it has the exact same spelling and the exact same pronunciation. When I use flirt as a noun, I'm talking about a person who habitually flirts, who indicates attraction to someone or behaves in a way that signals that. Okay, so an example of this might be careful, he's a huge flirt. So I think this is a sentence many friends have said to others as they maybe consider or pursue a relationship with someone, and you think, oh, I don't know if that person is very serious. I think they just kind of like that idea of talking to and behaving in kind of a flirty manner. The next word we're going to look at is the noun flirtation. Just like our verb, this noun can have several different meanings. The first would be a behavior that demonstrates a playful attraction to someone. An example of this definition in a sentence might be, a man robbed a woman at a gas station after she rejected his flirtation. So unfortunately, is a true story I pulled from the news. So a man thought he was behaving in kind of a playful or way. Woman did not want to interact with that person, and that is how he behaved after. A second way we can use the noun flirtation is to refer to a rather short or very casual relationship. An example of this in a sentence might be, is this just a flirtation or are you in love? So maybe you're trying to understand how serious someone else is in their relationship with another person. That might be a question you could ask. A third way to use the noun flirtation is to reference kind of a period of time where you're experimenting or maybe exploring some type of idea or activity. An example of this. While the artist had a short flirtation with country music, she has mainly performed rock. Okay? So is describing someone generally performs in this style or genre of music, briefly kind of experimented with another form of music. The next word we're going to look at is the adjective flirtatious. Generally, we use this adjective to describe when someone is behaving in a way that expresses attraction to someone else. An example of this, he gave her a flirtatious smile. Okay, so again, we're describing smile, the noun there, with that particular adjective. The last word we'll discuss today is the adverb flirtatiously. This describes something that has been done in a way to express attraction to another person. An example of this, she texted him flirtatiously. So here, flirtatiously is describing our verb text. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a great Valentine's Day.